Westchester County Association's second annual Regional Workforce Summit. I'm Michael Romita, the President and CEO of the Westchester County Association. Now, normally I'd be joining you live this morning, but I'm taping this opening because I'm getting my second vaccine jab as you watch. Workforce development has long been one of the foundational underpinnings of WCA's work because we understand the importance of fostering an ecosystem of local talent to support our professional community and the regional economy at large. It's why we have developed standing workforce working groups and industry-focused talent councils. It's why we have been selected to design and implement major national grant projects. It's why we have an on-staff director dedicated solely to workforce development in the region. And it's why we now dedicate every year this premier event to the issue. A special thanks to our platinum members and all of the event sponsors who you have seen scrolling across your screens. We're very excited that our Lieutenant Governor will give today's keynote, and we're eager to hear from all of our panelists, some of our local industry leaders in education, finance, and talent development. Now, I'd like to turn things over to Jason Chapin, the WCA Director of Workforce Development, to take over the show. Thanks for tuning in.
We're going to have a great discussion today about talent, training, recruitment, and retention, and uncover opportunities that will help our region bounce back from the economic crisis and make our workforce infinitely better. Whether we say workforce, employees, or talent, people are an organization's greatest asset. Educating and training them is critically important, and so is providing supports to help them thrive. Here are two clips from recent WCA events that highlight the importance of supports.
We know that affordability is a huge issue for parents at almost every income level. United Way released a report and asserted that a family of 4 with 2 working parents, a baby, and a preschooler would need an income of about $100,000 per year to afford childcare without help.
So what we really needed was a local supportive service, local partner to help us with this. And we found that in the Child Care Council of Westchester, and we started talking about how we could work together to bring her organization's services to all of our employees.
We knew that there was a need, obviously, but I think what we found, 2 things from the survey that we initiated. 1, we would have no trouble filling the center. And 2, and I think this is really where the surprise came in, is that even those that wouldn't be immediately impacted by the benefit were so overwhelmingly positive in their reaction to the center.
Simply naming your emotions is important, even if you can't change them. And it may seem way too simple given the circumstances we're under, that simply naming that, oh, I'm scared, I feel hopeless, would help. But data shows it does. Because we think that it's such an extraordinary set of circumstances. We're living in like a war zone, that simple things don't help. But over time, enough of them together can help us cope a little better. It doesn't mean you're going to return to your pre-pandemic life or state of mind, but it will help you get through these really extraordinarily difficult times.
Leaders, managers, executives, just the people that are kind of running a business. It's their responsibility to monitor their employees also on a level of care, saying, is this person okay? Is there something off? Should I reach out to them? That's kind of the first step to all of this, and seeing if there is someone who's having this type of issue or concern.
Let's remember that nonprofits provide most of the supports. They also are a big part of our economy and employ almost 20% of our workforce. They do heroic work and deserve our great thanks. Nonprofit Westchester plays a major role in all of this. They have 200 members, including the Child Care Council of Westchester, Family Services of Westchester, Feeding Westchester, United Way of Westchester and Putnam, Mount Vernon Neighborhood Healthcare Center, Volunteer New York, and they will play a key role in the economic recovery and beyond. Our region also has tremendous education, training, and career service providers. WCA works with colleges, BOCES, and career centers with more than 100,000 students and job seekers combined. That's an incredible talent pool. They educate, train, and provide talent where and when needed. WCA also publishes an employer resource guide with education, training, career service support, tax credit, hiring incentive, and other useful information. And we have a workforce committee creating talent pipelines and a new talent council addressing our region's nursing shortage. Our region's talent is exceptional. However, we need more big initiatives like the Los Angeles Performance Partnerships and New York Jobs CEO Council to help more underutilized Black, Latinx, older worker, immigrants, people with disabilities, veterans, and youth join or rejoin our workforce to make it better and our regional economy stronger. WCA's newest big initiative is a talent consortium made up of 20 colleges, BOCES, and career centers, and other partners who are collaborating to help local employers quickly find the talent they need and accelerate the region's jobs recovery. Every position filled benefits a job seeker, their family, their employer, and our economy. Now it's time to thank our sponsors and introduce Bill Tommins, President, Bank of America, Southern Connecticut Market Executive, Northeast Region, Global Commercial Banking. Bill connects businesses, families, and individuals to banking and investment teams to help improve their financial lives. He also leads the effort to deploy Bank of America's resources across the market and region to address social and economic concerns and build strong communities. Welcome and thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Jason, and good morning, everyone. Bank of America is really pleased to sponsor this morning's second annual Workforce Summit. And based on the attendance today, it appears that we've hit on a very relevant topic. At Bank of America, we're continuing to invest in our local communities to help create jobs and fuel economic opportunity. Working with local nonprofits, employers, and broader networks across the country, Bank of America is supporting the skills training needed to meet demands for a diverse talent pipeline. Last June, Bank of America announced a $1 billion commitment over 4 years to address economic opportunity and racial equality. And last month, we increased that commitment to $1.25 billion and extended it to 5 years. Our efforts include a recent $25 million investment in 21 higher education institutions, including community colleges, historically Black colleges and universities, and Hispanic serving institutions. Combined with an increased commitment to hiring by major employers, that means more opportunities for more members of our community. We've also made a $188 million investment across 61 private equity funds focused on minority and women entrepreneurs to address the persistent gap in access to growth capital for minority-led businesses. Throughout our 91 local markets in the US, we're working to partner with companies that have jobs to fill with advancement potential, identify the skills that are needed to fill those jobs, and then train and source those individuals to position them for success in these roles. It's harder work than just writing a check, but we are committed to the work, which is why we're so excited about today's Workforce Summit. I have the great pleasure of introducing today's keynote speaker, Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul. The Lieutenant Governor has been in public service almost her entire adult life and has served as town councilwoman, deputy county clerk, US Congresswoman, and since 2015, Lieutenant Governor and the highest ranking female elected official of the great state of New York. Lieutenant Governor Hochul also chairs the statewide regional economic development councils and spearheads the administration's economic development and job creation efforts. Across New York, she works to champion policies to transform our economy, including job training, investing in minority and women-owned businesses, and closing the gender wage gap. We're eager to hear what she has to say about New York's commitment to workforce development and the economic recovery, as well as highlights from the recently passed state budget. Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul, welcome, and thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Well, thank you, Bill. It is a pleasure to be with you and to be back reunited with the WCA. I participated virtually in your 70th anniversary last fall, and we had a chance to honor one of my former colleagues in Congress, Congresswoman Nita Lowey, who was so excited about bringing me to her district 10 years ago when I was elected. I'd actually been to Westchester before I had even been to parts of my new district. So I've been there many, many times, and also had a chance to get to know Bill Mooney when I was a Vice President for Strategic Relations for M&T Bank in between my various political careers, and had a chance to sit down and have a real deep conversation about the needs of the community. So this organization is no stranger to me, and I have tremendous admiration for what all your members are doing, and also special shout out to Michael Romita. I think that's the best excuse I've heard for not participating in something, someone getting a shot. I want to hear more of that, getting his vaccination, and Jason and everybody in the entire team. Thank you. This is important. I mean, you've nailed it. You've actually have focused your energies, your attention, and all the participants in this great panel you have on what I think is the defining challenge of our time right now, which is how we reimagine the post-pandemic world. And we're getting closer to declaring that we're in the post-pandemic world. I'm a little concerned about some of the infection rate numbers that are still existing around parts of our state. I live in Western New York. It's, you know, we were bumping up against 5% a few days ago, starting to head back down in the 4s, but Westchester itself, sorry, friends, it's still about 4.8%. So we still have work to do to continue the social distancing, the testing. So anybody who says we're in the post-pandemic era they're a little too premature, and I want to make sure we get that message out. But as I heard some of the conversation before this started, it all does come down to the vaccines. Everybody's anxious to get back to normal. And that'll only happen if we achieve the herd immunity, which is what we are told by experts would be about 75 to 90% of people vaccinated. Westchester is doing well. Statewide, we're at about 42.6%. We monitor these numbers very closely. Westchester is 48.4%. So almost half of your adult population has at least one dose of them. So we're trending in the right direction. I had a chance to visit your incredible mass vaccination site with the county executive and Michael Israel from the Westchester Medical a little while back, and it's well run. But I think we're going to be reshifting that focus into the neighborhoods and the workplaces, and to have employers say, bring it out to me, or I'll find the pharmacist, just give us the okay. And I think that's the next step, not just churches and community centers and that kind of outreach. And I do think there'll be a time when we are literally knocking on doors, because we have to convince people, maybe one-on-one, that this is safe, it's smart, and it is our ticket to the recovery that we're all so anxious for. So I just wanted to give you a little update on what we're doing with that. But we have focused tremendously on workforce development. As Bill mentioned, I chair the Regional Economic Development Councils. Westchester has been a major player in that and bringing money back to the area. And this is all pre-COVID. I mean, we were in a different place. February 2020, which is the last numbers that we consider pre-pandemic. The unemployment rate in Westchester was 3.9%. Now it's about 6.5%. So not outrageous. It can be fixed. We're trending in a better place. But a year ago, a little more than a year ago, we had this conversation. The challenge was, how do we find workers with the skills our employers need to sustain our economy? I mean, Westchester has so much. I mean, biotech, leader in biotech, absolutely. Health sciences, advanced manufacturing, and also the charm of the small downtowns where the mom and pop shops are driving the business, the small restaurants, the entrepreneurs. I come out of an entrepreneurial family. They think I'm the black sheep because I went into politics, but my whole family, mother started a flower shop, dad got involved in the early days of a tech company in the 1960s when a computer was the size of my office. And my sister did very well with a tech company. So I've seen the evolution of technology and how it's changed our lives through various industries. And I think right now we have a fascinating opportunity to talk about where we are, not look back, but the new future. And the question I'm sure many of the employees are asking, what will it take to get back employees to our offices? And is that exactly what we want? I mean, how productive have they been working from home, those who've had the ability to do so? What I'm concerned about are the people who did not have the ability to work from home, the people who have been in the lower wage jobs, the ones who were in hospitality, restaurants, cleaning, lower wage individuals. They're absolutely the ones that got crushed by this, because what people stopped doing was going to the places where they work. They didn't go to hotels. They didn't go to tourist attractions. They didn't need a lot of people other than packing up your to-go food from the local restaurant, because we didn't need wait staff. And even when I was out traveling and going to some outdoor dining during the pandemic, I didn't see a waiter or waitress, and I'm a former waitress, so I know the industry well. I was handed an iPad to order my own food. And that sent a message quickly to my head. I said, okay, there's a lot of people who we've talked about displacement of people because of automation. I think that's sped up in those industries where we would have expected there still be a human touch. I think employers are looking to offset some of their costs they've lost during the pandemic. So they're going to be thinking about how they can create efficiencies. And if it's a robot delivering your food in your hotel from room service, or someone handing you an iPad in a restaurant, my alarms are saying we have to figure out what to do with those people. We have to figure out a way to transition them from those jobs that they've had that they thought were, they could maybe support a family on 2 of those jobs possibly. But how do we capture them? And what you're talking about, workforce development, and I've never quite liked the phrase workforce development, even though I use it, because I'm not sure what it means. There's not one size fits all. It needs to be very targeted. And even back when I was a member of Congress, I understood that we shouldn't be planning any workforce development training programs without talking to the employers first. I mean, the employers know what the skills they need. I don't know why we'd be teaching certain curriculum at a community college or a local school thinking we're creating the workforce when we've not had a conversation with the local company that we're thinking we're going to be supplying the labor to. Let's just be smart about this. So I was always convening leaders of my colleges, community colleges on up to the major universities. with the major employers and their HR people. And when I was doing that, or anytime I walk a factory floor, I say to the CEO or the manager, what skills are you looking for? Can someone from high school start here? You know, we need people, they say, we need people from entry level. We'll train them all the way up to PhDs. So that's been out there for a long time, but now I believe there's going to be more people that are going to fall through the cracks because of this pandemic. And my anxiety levels are high on how we actually literally identify them, get them into programs that are partially funded by the private sector in partnership with the state of New York, because we are leaning hard in this. Even before the pandemic, we announced $150 million for a workforce development initiative. I've been involved in that from the beginning. We had 15 major projects in Westchester. I just want to mention, I'll be actually at Spectrum Designs next week. I'm coming to Westchester to celebrate their training of underemployed individuals with autism in the Mid-Hudson area. We have programs at Westchester Care, West Tab, East Scholar, Community-Based Services, Westchester Medical Center, Grayston Foundation. I also visited Grayston. What an incredible program that is. So we've been giving out money from this pot of 150 million in before the pandemic, and we're continuing to do that. But now we're in a different place. Now we're in a very different place. I think we're going to be trying to identify who's been hurt the most, what the employers of tomorrow need, not yesterday, not today, but what do the employers need in the future? And let's get that training done. And I also know that we have a huge gap, because we can say, oh my gosh, there's a great workforce development program. There's an apprenticeship program. Come on in the doors. We're working with our local colleges. It's all great. If there's nobody watching someone's kids, it's not happening. I mean, so you hit on childcare, something that I have been sounding the alarm about. I sound like I'm always an alarmist. I'm always sounding the alarm that we need to be addressing this challenge, because guess who was hardest hit during this pandemic? Guess who had those low wage jobs, who used to have to show up in the restaurants and the cleaning services and the low wage opportunities that are out there that people take because they don't have more education, more training. Those are primarily filled by women. About 66% of low income jobs are held by women, and many of them are heads of household. So for us to get this right to benefit society, but also address the needs of our employers, we have to be providing childcare literally on site at the training programs. I mean, let's get smart about this. I have been talking about it in larger employers. In fact, I was visiting one Syracuse a couple of days ago, a huge construction site, big 5G facility, gonna be amazing. And the employer very proudly told me, he goes, remember when we had dinner together about a year ago and you said, you're gonna ask me where the childcare center is on site? He goes, I wanna show you. And it was just all the steel girders, and it was just a big mess. And he said, it's gonna be right there. And I said, bingo. You will have no trouble recruiting people to work here, because you've shown that you're attuned to the needs of your workforce, men and women who have children. And who would have thought, even when I had that conversation way back, that we'd be dealing with a situation where it may still be 6 months before kids are back in school full time. So parents who thought they were just sort of juggling everything, taking care of the preschoolers, but once they're in school, you got a certain number of hours where you don't have to worry about it. All of a sudden that implodes. Mom and dad might be working at one end of the kitchen table and the youngsters are trying to learn. I saw an interview with a little girl who does her classwork in her closet with a flashlight because her little baby brother was so noisy. Families are going through incredible stress. So the smart employers, the enlightened employers, those who are going to lead us out of this are the ones who are going to say, we get it. Either on a work site, we're going to help you out with your family. You're a smaller business, you don't have the space. Who's around you? Is it a downtown area where you can have a consortium and you all pitch in and help with support from the state using tax credits? And the federal government, thank God, is investing in this from the American Recovery Act. Thank you, Joe Biden and the Congress. So we have the money to work with now. We're going to continue investing in this, but I need the advice from the employers on how to make this actually work. And maybe it's redefining these training programs, making them sound like they have a little more pizzazz that, oh, please come to our workforce development program. Let's jazz it up a little bit. Let's make it sound like something someone's going to want to do. Do you want to change your life? How would you like to be able to afford supporting your own family without being reliant on perhaps an abusive spouse or someone? I mean, I've worked in domestic violence for a long time. My family started a shelter. So a lot of women are also trapped in relationships because they don't have the money to be able to free themselves. And workforce development that focuses on childcare can help lift up so many people who are in difficult situations. I did want to just talk briefly about what's in the budget, because everyone's saying, show us the numbers. And we have to continue to work on improving the local talent pipelines. I get that. Flexibility is the key word. There is no one size fits all anymore. As I said, I'll tell you what I'm hearing when I'm out there. I just sat down with labor leaders. They are saying, please help get people in the door to learn the trades. This is one area. You learn one of the trades, you'll be employed for the rest of your life. You will not be automated out of existence, because we still need you to do the painting, the plastering, the welding, the climbing up, and literally building our future. So those are areas we have to get young people more excited going into. The STEM careers, I've opened up a facility dealing with another STEM school for young people to get excited about it. I think there's so much opportunity in healthcare, and healthcare fits under that STEM definition. And these could be entry-level coding jobs. You take someone who has a GED, they can learn how to code and be part of a healthcare system, maybe work their way up. So you don't have to have a medical degree to be in the healthcare services. The green energy jobs, we just announced another 20,000 jobs we expect to come from our investments in green energy, the wind and solar. I was up in Washington County during a snowstorm yesterday, kind of surreal. Snow's coming down and we're launching this huge solar array. Look at the jobs that are coming with that, and there's training available. And this is where our partners in the private sector and the colleges and universities need to be working with us to find out what skills do you want those workers to have. We're talking about overall clean energy, 150,000 jobs in all of its forms. Okay, what skills do they need in future employers? What skills do you want them to be taught? So you don't have to spend so much of your initial dollars bringing in an employee, trying to train them. I know retention costs are high and it's very expensive when you train someone and they leave. So you want to get that commitment that they'll stay. So we're seeing a massive shift, and our budget recognizes that we're putting more money toward childcare programs, $50 million also for training in high growth industries and focusing on low income workers, helping also money for small businesses to train people who've been laid off, get them into something new. And also truly help our small businesses. I mean, a lot of them are still really hammered because they're not at full capacity. It's really hard for a restaurant to open its doors when you're telling them 25% or 30%, we get to 50%. You still don't make the ends meet. It doesn't work. I've been in the restaurant business. So these are areas we have to keep them having a lifeline and just help them hang on, because I have been to so many of the charming communities in Westchester, and their identity comes from these little businesses. It's not from the, no offense to anybody who works in a giant office park, but the charm and the identity of Westchester comes from its downtown communities. So we're going to keep investing in our workforce development programs, childcare programs, but also our economic development programs. The REDC money is going to keep flowing. And I'll tell you, last summer, we were very anxious about the budget. We did not know if we were going to be able to continue to afford programs like the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, which is transforming communities all over the state. And the support from the federal government helped us be able to say, yes, we have the money. We're going to be able to offset the costs that we've incurred. We had about $6 billion in extraordinary expenses from the pandemic. Then you lose $15 billion in revenue coming in. So it was pretty much a disaster. But we were able to get the support from the federal government that was really, really critical. And so I think it's something that we're excited about. I know it is, and we're going to be focusing on all these, but I'm going to be asking you how we can help lift up women, how we can help lift up people in the lower wage jobs. And we have an initiative called Pathways to Prosperity, where we're asking large employers to sign a pledge that they'll support the efforts toward creating a more diverse, inclusive workforce. And that's going to be what's really important for us. And again, talk up the green energy jobs, talk up the areas of healthcare and biomedicine. That's where the jobs in the future are coming from, I think, in a place like Westchester. So I've been on a long time. I just wanted to say hello. I know you've got your panel discussion. So I wanted to just give you an overview and tell you that we see the challenges. We see the challenges as opportunities. This is a way that we can right some of the wrongs of the past, make sure that our workforces are more diverse, inclusive, that we address more family needs, and we give people the skills they need so they can get a great job in Westchester with your amazing employers, raise a family, go to the fabulous schools, and stay there for generation after generation. That is my objective, and I I thank WCA for helping lead that way to that outcome.
That was tremendous. Thank you very much, Lieutenant Governor, for your great leadership, especially as chair of the Regional Economic Development Councils and State Workforce Board. I'm ready for more, and I hope you are too. Amy Partridge was going to be our moderator, but unfortunately something came up. It is my great pleasure to serve as moderator and introduce our impressive panel. Tim Hall is president of Mercy College. He has more than 25 years of leadership experience in higher education and oversees Mercy campuses in Dobbs Ferry, the Bronx, Manhattan, and Yorktown, with 10,000 students combined. One interesting fact, Mercy College is very diverse and the largest federally designated Hispanic serving institution in New York State. Welcome, Tim. Marissa Weidner is Chief Human Resources Officer at Sterling National Bank. Marissa is responsible for developing and executing human resource strategy in support of the overall business plan and strategic direction of the organization. Welcome, Marissa. Arthur Woods is co-founder of Mathison, a talent marketplace connecting underrepresented populations to the most competitive job opportunities globally. He is a serial entrepreneur working at the intersection of inclusion and technology. Welcome, Arthur. Starting with Tim, then Marissa and Arthur, tell us about the important talent development work your organization is doing.
Thanks, Jason, and welcome everyone. It's great to get to visit with you this morning. Since Mercy is New York's largest private nonprofit minority serving institution with over 9,000 students, we expect to be a crucial workforce partner with employers seeking to recruit a diverse workforce in Westchester and the tri-state area. I want to use this introduction to talk with you briefly about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and then to talk about a brand new initiative Mercy is undertaking to prepare employees for the workplace. First, let me talk for a moment about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Although Mercy is an incredibly diverse institution, more than 60% of our students are students of color, and we have campuses in Dobbs Ferry, the Bronx, Manhattan, and with students completely online, we know that being diverse and inclusive is not enough. We're fiercely devoted to equity and what I call inclusive success, just as we're devoted to student success generally. That's the principle that the college is responsible for creating structures and policies that will give our students the ability to flourish and succeed. We'll talk more about, we actually talk more about being student ready than we talk about whether our students are college ready. Inclusive success is our commitment to see that the success-oriented structures and policies that we produce will allow different groups of students to experience comparable levels of success. Whether your family has many resources or few, whether you're the first student in your family to go to college or the 20th student, whether you're Black, brown, or white, or any other race or ethnic background, we're committed to creating equal conditions of success for you, and we're increasingly seeing our students experience equally successful results. Second, let me talk for a moment about what's next for Mercy College. Traditionally, success has been for us graduating our students with one of more than 100 undergraduate and graduate degrees. But today is a great time to announce that Mercy is about to take an enormous step in preparing students for the workplace. Yesterday, the Mercy Board approved my request to invest several millions of dollars over the next few years to create a totally new workforce development division. This division will focus on shorter term certificates rather than on full undergraduate and graduate degrees. These certificates will be for people who are looking for preparation in very specific workforce skills, whether these are hard skills like software coding or soft skills like executive leadership or conflict resolution. Over the last year, research has shown that a majority of workers who've been displaced by the pandemic are actually looking for shorter term skills preparation rather than for full degrees, whether those are associate or bachelor's or graduate. Right now in Westchester, jobs are sitting open because employees lack the skills to fill them. Mercy's prepared to help employees fill that gap. As a result, we expect to be more deeply connected than ever to the workforce needs of Westchester County and the tri-state area. I'm anxious to talk with business leaders in Westchester, just as the Lieutenant Governor suggested, to make sure we're prioritizing the skills they're looking for. Now we'll hear from Marissa Weidner. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, WCA, for putting on this wonderful event. There's nothing more important than developing our workforce, without a doubt. So I work with Sterling National Bank, and we've been in the news lately, so we might as well just call attention to that. We are in the news because we are merging with Webster Bank, or we're working through that process, which is going to be very exciting because it will make us a powerhouse Northeast bank. Bringing two $30 billion organizations together is quite exciting. But what's going on at Sterling, and what is our focus right now? Well, without a doubt, the banking industry has kind of been accelerating a digital transformation, and COVID just made us hit the accelerator. There's no doubt about that. Whether we're talking about what we're offering to our clients or our colleagues. So, the skill sets that we're looking for are going to be in analytics. Analytics. There's no doubt about that. So when people are asking employers, what are you looking for? I would just jump up and say, we are always looking for analytics and project management skills. Almost everything we work on these days is around project management. So those are two areas. I know we have a lot of college representation at today's event, so I just figured I'd throw those out. COVID disrupted a lot. And it accelerated a lot. One of the things that was accelerated is our agile workplace strategy. We were contemplating an agile workplace strategy prior to COVID, and then COVID took place. And what happened in this pandemic is like this: we're all working from home. Obviously, folks in our financial centers are still working in our financial centers, but from a back office perspective, how quickly could you stand up and be able to work from home? I'm very proud to say we didn't miss a beat at Sterling. Our technology team was right on point, and we were able to, within 2 days, everybody was working from home. We enabled people very quickly. We were already kind of building towards an agile workplace strategy. And now we're looking at that for the future. We don't anticipate that we're going to have people coming back into our offices 5 days a week. We're preparing for that hybrid work environment. We're preparing our workspaces for that hybrid work environment, with shared spaces. So that way, when people come in, they're coming in for specific activities, more collaboration based, as opposed to I have to be seen for people to know that I'm getting my job done. That's not the expectation anymore. It's the work, it's about what you deliver, not being visible. Leveraging technology in our organization, there's an expectation that you have your video camera on and that you're visible to one another, because that fosters the connection that one is missing by being face to face on the campuses. So we do expect people to make sure that their cameras are on and they're visible. Another thing that's facing our organization, as well as many others, which was spot on at the beginning of this panel, is childcare and mental health. And we had a program in place prior to the pandemic, which was definitely seen an uptick during the pandemic, where we offer our colleagues backup childcare and also elder care options. And so we did see an uptick in leveraging that backup childcare because we have colleagues that had to be present. Our banks, we're considered an essential business, and the banks must remain open. So for those folks working in the financial centers, it was an important benefit that they had available to them. in the time of need. And so that was a really good thing that we had in place and we didn't have to scramble to put in place. So we're grateful for that. Mental health issues, there's no doubt, that's going to be what's considered, the next pandemic, if you will, of our time. There's a lot of people that have been struggling, and making sure that we have a focus on wellness is very important from an organizational perspective. And so we're really ramping up our wellness focus this year, from 3 different areas, whether it's physical wellness, because we've been sitting behind these computers. I can speak personally to that. We call it the COVID-15 or the COVID-20, and we need to be able to work that off. So we're launching physical wellness challenges at Sterling now. But then there's also the mental wellness and the emotional wellness, and making sure that we have programs that are available to our colleagues on a continued and regular basis. And we create the safe spaces for folks to be able to talk about these type of issues and not feel like there's something wrong. So we're creating all of those opportunities as well. And then, of course, we're a financial institution, so we're very focused on financial wellness as well. The other thing that's really come out of accelerating, our digital footprint, accelerating our focus on our colleagues, mental wellness, et cetera. The times we are very focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. President Hall just talked about that. There's no doubt our country, the world, has seen a transformation, a shift, and there's no denying it. And thank goodness we're seeing that shift. This is really, really important. And from an organizational perspective, we have to be very focused on transparency around diversity, equity, and inclusion, making sure that we're having those conversations, making sure that we have talent programs in place to ensure that we're not focused on one cadre of colleague. All colleagues have to have those opportunities. And that transparency is really important. We actually have, this year, we're launching our diversity scorecard internally, where all of the colleagues can see quite clearly what the diversity makeup of the organization is, what the diversity makeup of talent movement is, who's getting the opportunities to move within the organization. And again, it kind of goes back to analytics. You need to have those analytical skills to be able to put that information forward. And then the last thing I'd say is, as an organization, we're very focused on the development of emerging talent and bringing emerging talent into the organization. We have a very robust, we consider it best in class internship program, where every year we have, actually about 13 to 1,400 students applying for our internship program. We take in about 20 interns over the summer. We give them an experience that we hope is truly memorable. And then we actually have a rotation program where we invite former interns to come back and actually be hired into our rotational program. And the conversion rate is quite high. We are able to attract many former interns into our rotational program. And that's a 1-year program where they go through, whether it's a commercial credit training program or a data and analytics program, a corporate function program. They get to go through a 1-year program that has training components as well as business experience components. And then they get placed within the organization. So a lot going on with respect to workforce development at Sterling, a lot that has changed as a result of the pandemic, but we feel that we're really ready to take our organization and the talent into the future. So now I will turn it over to Arthur.
Thank you, Marissa. Well, and wonderful. It's great to be here with Marissa and Kim and Bill and Jason. Thank you for having me. Bill, wonderful thoughts there as well. My name is Arthur Woods. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a member of the LGBTQ community. And I was actually prompted to get into the diversity, equity, inclusion space and be a co-founder of our company, Mathison, years ago, after I experienced a great deal of bias in the hiring process and homophobia in my very earliest jobs. And I think, Marissa put it so well. This last year has really been a confluence of events that has really changed everything. It's caused us to kind of fundamentally rewrite the playbook on work. The combination of the pandemic, of everyone witnessing the murder of George Floyd, of so many marginalized communities facing even greater states of inequity throughout the pandemic. Really, I think that the combination of these events caused leading employers to stand up and say, we have to make a change. We have to really rethink the way we look at diversity, equity, inclusion, and how we look at representation in our workforce. So our company, Mathison, just as a quick background, we're a technology company that helps employers build equitable hiring practices and actually successfully recruit from underrepresented job seeker communities. We've actually written the very first book on equitable hiring. It's called Hiring for Diversity, which comes out this August. And we've had the opportunity over the last few years to lead a lot of research in the space. And as Marissa can tell you, this work is really difficult. I have not met a single employer that has said it's easy to manage a strategy of building greater diversity and equity and inclusion in the workforce. And so we spent a lot of time researching why is it that employers struggle with this so immensely. And a couple of the themes I'd love to just share, maybe building on what Tim and Marissa shared, because I think this is a moment where everyone is ready for action. Everyone's ready to go beyond conversation to start really moving intent to impact. The very first thing we realized in our work was that we as leaders oftentimes don't have an inclusive definition of diversity itself. Oftentimes for leaders who are new to the conversation, diversity is thought of as what we can see. It's oftentimes revolving around gender diversity and ethnic diversity. And I think as Jason brilliantly put it earlier, first of all, Westchester County is rich in diversity. To see the great diversity that exists in a place like Mercy College, it's amazing. And as we think about diversity, we have to account for, as has been shared earlier, people with disabilities, refugees and immigrants, veterans. So many communities that don't normally oftentimes find themselves in the conversation. And oftentimes as leaders, when there's a myopic definition of diversity itself, we're really limiting the possibilities of how we can build representation and equity into our organizations. The pandemic and the events of the last year also really caused leaders to immediately say, we just have to hire more folks, right? If we just change who we're hiring, we can check the box and address all of our other needs. And I think as Marissa brilliantly spoke, in terms of great programs like the internship program at Sterling, I think we have to really address the topic of inclusion very, very first and foremost if we want to address our priority around diversity. If we're not building inclusive organizations that help people feel a sense of belonging, that empower people to come as their full best selves to work every day, we won't achieve any of our goals of having representation around the table. And that's the hard work that a lot of employers, I think, really struggle with, is building cultures of inclusion. We also have to sort of move this topic beyond what has oftentimes been simply just a recruiter or HR-led topic to be one that really is owned by everyone in our organizations. I think historically, we've oftentimes told HR or our recruiters, okay, you're responsible for growing diversity at our organization. Best of luck, get to work. Today, if our organizations, and especially the leadership teams of organizations, aren't embracing this work and taking responsibility equally, it won't work. And so we've really conceptualized work that empowers the entire organization to become part of the solution. And the final piece is we have to treat this work not as though it's an initiative or a campaign or a side effort that will one day cease to exist, but it has to be treated with the same level of imperative nature as every business priority. If growing diversity, we really believe in our hearts, is so imperative to the well-being of our organizations, we have to treat it with the same rigor with which we treat growing revenue and scaling our operations. And I think when we start to graduate this body of work into that level, we start to see that it's really sustainable. So thank you, Jason and team, for having me today, and WCA for all of the amazing work that you're doing in this space.
Wow, we're covering a lot of topics and we've already got a lot of news. We had some news on funding and new programs and mergers and books, so keep it coming. All right, so we've touched on a lot of topics, and I'm going to ask some of our panelists to share a little more on the topics. If you've already covered it, you don't have to comment, but we've got a lot of questions. I also want to remind our audience that there are a lot of great chats that are being posted. You may want to take a look at those, some great information. If you go to the bottom of the chat box, there's another box with a bunch of dots. You can actually click that and save the information if you want to review it later. Okay, so let's go through a few questions, then we'll open it up to audience questions. The first question I have for the panel is, how important is it for an organization to focus on recruitment and retention and creating talent pipelines? Let's start with Tim and then Marissa and then Art.
Yeah, we think it's very important. We're trying to serve a diverse population of students, and that means that we're trying to assemble a diverse population of faculty and staff to serve them. So that's one of our principles. We're absolutely convinced, and this is something not enough people know, that institutions can do things to create equity, that they don't just have to live with all the inequities that have been passed down across generations of inequity, but we can change things right now, right here. And part of how we do that is to create diverse student bodies and create diverse faculty and student and employees to serve those students.
Thank you, Tim.
There's
Go
not
ahead,
enough
Marissa.
words to say how critically important it is to develop the pipeline of talent. You know, if I think about Sterling, we were very focused for a long time on, you know, credit and commercial talent, right? You know, developing that training program. And just as a point of an example, the rest of the organization sees how critically important it is. So they want it to be part of the rotational program, right? So the rotation program is not limited now to just credit and commercial, which obviously is a critical component of a banking institution, but realizing that data and technology is a critical component. And like I said, the corporate functions, marketing, HR, et cetera, finance and operations, we have rotation programs for all of those areas because the business as a whole is realizing how important it is to get emerging talent into the organization. So, you know, in a nutshell, there's no words to describe how critically important it is to get emerging talent into a company.
I couldn't have said it better, Marissa and Tim. I mean, I think if we look at the system of systemic oppression or the cycle of systemic oppression, it really starts with education. When we look at the fact that there are fewer underrepresented communities graduating from early education, entering college, entering the workforce where wealth is generated, buying real estate, reinvesting in schools that largely serve those populations, we see that it all begins with education, which is why it's so exciting, the news that you've shared, Tim, on all the great work that Mercy College is doing, because you're absolutely right. We have to start there. And I think if we try to just address this work purely as employers, without acknowledging the trickle-down impact of early education, we're missing a major part of this strategy.
Okay, that's really important information, and we talked about the importance of DEI. So let's talk about some of the benefits. In other words, you know, you've diversified your organization and increased equity and inclusion. And what are you hearing from your staff, from your partners, from, you know, those that you work with on a daily basis about how it's changed the organization and how it's benefited the organization? And why don't we reverse it? We'll start with Arthur and then Marissa and then Tim.
Sure. Well, I think that one of the great things in this work, as Marissa and Tim can tell you as well, is we've collectively seen such a strong business case for diversity. It's almost, I think when we're all in conversations today, it's almost presumed common knowledge. But when we start to really look at the fact that when you have a diverse workforce, it not only drives innovation and drives business performance, but we think about culturally having diversity of thought around the table, creating psychological safety so people show up on their Zoom call in a meeting and actually feel like they belong and they're celebrated for who they are. And what that means, and Marissa can tell you probably better than anyone, the cultural impact of of creating a workforce where people feel like they can bring their full selves to work, and the loyalty with which they show up to work. That means they go the extra mile, they innovate. I mean, it's just the cultural impact of that. Yeah, you can't even begin to describe the difference between that and a place where people live in fear, where they can't be themselves at work, which is a state that many people have found themselves in. So it is just, it's just night and day. And Marissa, I'm sure you can echo that.
Yes, absolutely. And, we do go one step further. We do call it diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. For that very reason, people need to feel like they belong within the organization. One of the things that we have done is we did launch 7 BRGs, business resource groups. So that way we have opportunities for colleagues to feel a part of. And we're very clear that these BRGs are not, you don't have to solely identify to be part of these BRGs. We encourage allies, and folks to come from all over the organization. I can tell you I participate in all 7 BRGs because you walk away with an awareness. And I think that's so critically important. And BRGs, they have different phases, if you will. You start out with, this kind of educational and awareness and creating the safe space. And then it graduates to eventually really helping you from a business perspective, better understand your marketplace, better figure out what products that you have to offer. But right now, our real focus this year has been about awareness and education and creating that safe space. Each BRG hosts various events, and I walk away learning something every time I attend one of those events. And I know I can speak confidently that colleagues across the organization feel the very same way. And most importantly, we are seeing colleagues participating in the various BRGs, regardless of whether they identify or not. So that's just one aspect of making sure folks are feeling included. It has to come from offering programs, offering opportunities, but it also has to come from, as Arthur said, accountability across the business unit for making sure that we're moving that diverse talent. And that's, really a goal of ours with having, if you will, this diversity scorecard. We have our analytics posted. We have a program at Sterling called Sterling Insights, where you can see the various different analytics, business analytics, marketing analytics that are going on. But we also have our diversity metrics that are up there. Creating that accountability and that transparency is critically important. And we'll be measuring, the movement of talent throughout the organization and making that visible for everybody as well.
Yeah, at Mercy, sometimes it matters that we focus on cold, hard facts, like, do you graduate? Like, do you stay at the college after your first year? If people are not graduating, they're not being included in success. And so we're overwhelmingly focused on those cold, hard facts. I'm happy to tell you that we've made great strides in making sure that different groups of our students are succeeding by the cold, hard numbers like, do you graduate? Because remember, that's our mission. Our mission is not to give people coursework, it's to give people degrees. If you're not involved in that, if you're not succeeding at that, then we're not succeeding at our mission. So I'm happy to tell you that for the last 3 years, as we found ways to support our diverse student body, for the last 3 years, our Black students, our Hispanic students are being retained. They're staying on, they're persisting more than our white students. That shows that we're on the right track. We're still grappling with differences in graduation rates, as many colleges are, but we're focused on the things that are producing not just a feeling of success, but actual success, which is what we're in the business of delivering to our students.
That's very powerful. When our students succeed, we all succeed. So everything that's pointing us in the direction of more students graduating and graduating on time means that they're going to be more prepared to then join our workforce and benefit our regional economy. So we really wish you great success and continued success. Okay, so this is going to get a little interesting. Now we're going to be talking about other generations. So I want to start with Marissa and then Arthur and then Tim. We have Gen Zs and millennials,
and they're in our workforce and joining our workforce. So what do you need to do differently to attract and retain millennials and Gen Zs? What works and doesn't work?
Well, actually, it's very interesting. We're focused on the fact that we have both. So first of all, we were chatting about this before we went live, and the reality of it is people are going to expect to be able to work from home and have more balance. So I would say that that is definitely something that we are going to have to tackle. The Gen Zs and millennials, they have an expectation that you're contributing to your community and you're doing good. And that's important, making sure that we're very active in our communities, giving back to our communities. There's an expectation that we have a focus on diversity. So these are all things, quite frankly, that Gen Zs and millennials, it's an expectation. There's not a nice to have, it's just an expectation. And we need to deliver on that to be able to attract that talent. Some of the other things that we have put in place now is we have a reverse mentor, what we call a reverse mentoring program at Sterling, where our, if you will, our younger or more junior population is actually mentoring our more senior population, our leaders within the organization. And that has actually been remarkable. We've had tremendous feedback. So, you know, our more junior level colleagues coming into the organization, they're mentoring the senior leadership team on, you know, navigating social media or, you know, various different things along those lines, and helping the senior leaders become more engaged from a social media perspective and be more active and advocates for the organization. So we're trying really hard to embrace, not just to say that, you know, folks are coming into the organization and they're at the junior levels, but rather to pair them up with senior leaders to show that the Gen Zs and the millennials can teach us a lot. And so that's really how we're trying to position our organization.
Tim, you want to go next?
Yes.
Sure, I'm happy to. I'm going from here to a town hall for our faculty and staff about our back to work plans, our plans to get the campus back up. This year, many of our students have chosen with their feet to do things online, although we've had lots of people who are coming to class. Next year, what we're hearing from students is far more of them want to be face-to-face. So I'm going to talk in that town hall about this question of remote work. Most of our faculty and staff have worked remotely over the last year. We're in the business of serving students wherever they are. Traditionally, most of those students have been on the ground, face-to-face in classrooms. That's going to change in the future, but it's not going to change completely. So we're trying to balance how many people do we need back in our offices to serve the students who are going to be walking on our campuses, and how many people will we need to serve them more remotely, more virtually. We're probably going to start off conservatively because we're kind of worried that the danger is that we won't have enough people to serve people face to face, and we don't want to lose students because they're not experiencing that face to face service. So, but I can't imagine our work policies and how many people are working remotely and for what terms of the week, et cetera, not to change as we go forward in the future, because we're in the business of attracting diverse talent to serve our diverse students. And I know what's going on around us. And if we don't make new accommodations for people's expectations, especially the expectations of some of our newer employees and our newer generations, we're not going to survive well in the future.
I think that's very well said, Tim. And you know, I would just add into what Marissa and Tim said to say, you know, there's so much that we can learn from earlier generations as much as the other way around. I think one quick note is that we were talking about this earlier before the start of the conversation, that this next generation is going to be prioritizing autonomy and flexibility in their work more than anything. So as we're looking at the value proposition we create for the workforce, the ability to have you know, flexibility of where you work and how you work, in many cases will actually be more important than some of the more extrinsic ways that we've been incentivizing people today. So I think it's just an important note for attracting that next generation.
And to that point, think about gig work, project-based work, right? So the younger talent is not necessarily desiring the same day-to-day role. They might want to work on one project and then shift to another project and get experience on another project. And so that's, you know, those are opportunities that we need to start making available as well.
Lots of information. Okay, so before we open it up to audience questions, we're going to have a little lightning round. So we've covered a lot of topics, but I want to make sure you all have the opportunity to discuss anything else that we haven't covered that you think is important to mention. I'll start with Tim, and then Arthur, and then Marissa, and then we'll take some questions from the audience.
Well, what I would say is, and this is what I firmly believe, that colleges and universities can no longer afford to be even thought of as ivory towers, that we're more like intellectual malls, we're workplace training, places on the ground. So I just want to know, everyone out there to know, all the businesses, all the employers, that we believe that we ought to have more connections than ever with the workplace. And that if we're not listening, we're not learning. And if we're not learning, our students are not learning what they need to flourish in the worlds to which they're going. So I hope to be involved very much, and I have been involved already as we've made arrangements with different businesses, including healthcare businesses in Westchester. I hope to be involved, and I'm hiring people in the very near future who are going to be even more involved in helping us to identify what are the needs of the workplace and how can Mercy contribute both through its degrees and the curriculum behind those degrees and through new certificates and shorter term skill opportunities.
I love that. Well, you know, I would just say, Jason, that you know, first of all, this work is deeply personal. You know, all the work that we're trying to lead around equity and inclusion, unlike any other business imperative, it really speaks to our value system. It speaks to our emotions, and it makes it distinct work. I think you know, this last year caused an urgency that's wonderful because it did inspire a lot of action. But I think on the part of many leaders, it did prompt this posturing that we have to be really careful about, because many leaders were acting out of a desire to show that they were making progress versus out of the deep kind of connection to why the work was necessary. The events of the last year, if anything, just reminded us of what we already knew, that there was deep inequity that existed in the workforce and society that we needed to act on. And I think leaders today do have to slow down a little to speed up. You know, there was this frenzy of, you know, let's take action, let's make all these changes without necessarily acknowledging why they were necessary and what needed to change. And so I think as we really do that deep soul searching, that's where we start to make the kind of cultural shift that's needed for diversity to really take root in our organizations.
All right, so I've got a bunch of audience questions and I'm going to go through them. You don't all have to answer. Maybe just one of you wants to comment, and then we'll see how many we can get through before we wrap up.
I didn't get my lightning round there.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Okay, Marissa, I'll give you an extra 15 seconds.
Don't worry, I'm not afraid to speak up.
That?
I never have been. So the only thing I was going to add is, you know, one of the things I didn't touch on is learning and development. You know, as we kind of go through and navigate. So we're hearing a lot about education from our colleges, which is critically important, but we have to continue that learning and development when folks do get employed. And so enabling folks to kind of drive their own careers, and not necessarily it's just limited to 20 people being selected to be in a certain program within the organization. We've really opened it up where, you know, folks have access, whether it's LinkedIn Learning or we have this program called Get Abstract. We make a lot of various learning opportunities available to colleagues across the organization and help them have access to the tools to drive their own career path and be able to have access to information that might not be pertaining to their specific role, but maybe they have an interest in another role within the organization, and how can they get that opportunity as well. So I just think that's an important piece, is the continuation of learning throughout one's career cycle. We need to make sure that we continue to offer that.
Yeah, it reminds me of the term I heard many years ago in a previous job, lifelong learning. I mean, we all have to learn. If we continue to learn and we continue to have new experiences, we'll continue to grow, and that's what life's all about. Okay, so the first question is, it reminds me of yesterday when global leaders got together to talk about climate change, and so this may not be something that we're all experts at, but There was a question about, what is happening in our region in terms of green, in terms of all of the renewable energy projects that are popping up. Is there anything going on with your organization or any commitments your organization has made regarding climate change? And if there are no comments, then we can move on to the next question. Okay, this question is for Marissa. Can you please describe how the shared spaces were set up?
Sure. So we essentially went through the exercise of removing designated spaces and asking people, kind of clean it up, have no personal effects, so to speak, at the workspaces. And then we actually just implemented a workspace management system so that colleagues can basically go in and figure out where would they like to work from. We have a multi-campus strategy. We don't have where everybody goes to one building. There's, various locations throughout our footprint. So A, which building do I want to work from today based on what my needs are? And B, what space do I want to work out of? Do I need a space that has privacy based on the conversations that I'm having today? Or do I need a conference room, or, is a workstation going to work? We also have beyond the pandemic, because right now we have it what we consider 50% lit up, where every other space is available. You can't go side by side next to people for obvious reasons. And then there'll be touchdown space where you don't need to reserve it at all. It's just, you might be coming in for various meetings throughout the day, and you just need to kind of go off and check some emails between meetings or make a quick phone call. So that's how we've set up our agile workplace across our campus locations.
Okay, and this is to the whole group. How would you suggest people develop their tech skills to compete and be a part of this new virtual world?
Well, I'll just jump in and say there's various ways that you can continue to learn. LinkedIn Learning is one as an example. There's all different resources available. Partner with people that are in the technology space and ask them to give you kind of a mentoring session. Do the online self-learning. I know one of the things we actually offer is tech fluency curriculum to our colleagues that has daily practice as well. So the world is your oyster, so to speak, whether there's books, online resources, or people. And I definitely always recommend connecting with people because they're going to share a true experience versus things that are just on paper.
There was a time when I was a law professor that I was thought of as quite the nerdy tech law professor. I tell you, as the years go by, it gets harder and harder to be seen as nerdy in the world of techs. What I find is I keep having to working about it. I keep having to ask people. I keep having to say to the IT people with whom I'm associated, don't just do that for me. Show me how to do it so I don't have to call you the next time I need it. This is just part of what lifelong learning is that we continue to try to learn even in the areas that are not quite so close to us anymore.
All right, and Arthur, given your tech background, do you have any comments?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I would say in general, you leverage the tools that you have available. I mean, I used to help lead learning at YouTube, and YouTube has millions of free educational videos where you can really learn anything. To Marissa's point, you can learn on LinkedIn. I mean, I would just say never sort of stop pushing yourself to look at new languages, new skills, and new mediums, because to Marissa's point, it's these core skills like project management and the ability to sort of take on any new technology and just embrace it. It's going to continue to change. So we just have to build that muscle of continuing to learn.
Okay, great. So I'm going to try and get through a few more questions. This is one about criminal justice. And so those who have been incarcerated and they're looking for work, do you know of any programs? Do you want to highlight anything that you're aware of that the audience would like to know about?
Well, I'd be happy to let people know that one of the programs I'm most happy about and excited about, and normally excited to attend the graduation for, is our program in Sing Sing. We serve more than 100 students at Sing Sing most times. And so we're in the business of serving everybody, including people who've been involved in the criminal justice system. And what we discover is they learn just like the rest of us. They're as capable of success, both inside and outside, as the rest of us. I just got a letter this week from one of the inmates at Sing Sing who had seen that Mercy had provided a scholarship opportunity for a student, and it made some news. And he was calling and writing as a Mercy alum to say how proud he was that we were doing that. And I'm proud that they're watching us. I'm proud that they came through Mercy College. We're going to do more of that in the future, I promise you.
All right, I have a separate question that came in to me for Arthur. Tell us a little bit about Mathison, who you work with, and different groups that you're helping.
Sure, thanks, Jason. And so Mathison is a software technology that helps employers basically audit their entire hiring process and talent process to identify where there's bias and where there's room to improve accessibility. And we've created a suite of tools that actually help employers manage their diversity recruiting efforts, including equipping their team members to be part of the process of reducing bias and improving outreach to diverse communities. So we license this to leading companies from major banks like First Republic Bank to major consultancies like Accenture, all the way to national hockey teams like the Seattle Kraken and Minnesota Wild. So we really love working with organizations of all shapes and sizes, nonprofit and for-profit, who are committed to building equity and inclusion in the workforce.
Great, thank you. Marissa, I'd like you to start with this one, and maybe you can tell us about some of the other partners that you work with. How do you identify what skills are needed for the different positions at your bank, and who do you work with in order to make sure that there's training available to give them those skills, to give them those credentials that you're looking for in those that you're recruiting and hiring?
So I guess it would start with the rotational program. That would probably be a good place to start. So for the skills that we want folks to come in with, or the development that we want them to have, we don't develop those programs in a vacuum, right? It's not HR developing the programs and deciding what the rotation is going to look like. It's a partnership with the business unit leaders. So what is it specifically that the business unit is looking for? Much like we're asking the colleges to partner with the businesses, our own HR function needs to partner with the business within the business, if you will, to truly understand what the needs are. I'd say from an emerging talent perspective, it's really about having the right attitude to come into the organization. You're looking for cultural fit at the earliest stages, and then taking the opportunity to provide the technical know-how when you're getting folks in from an internship and a rotational perspective. Then beyond that, it's going to be working with the business to identify when we're looking for more experienced folks what specific skills are required. And that's why I said I'm just finding across the board analytics, project management, it's crossing every aspect of our organization, because we work on projects all the time. Almost everything we're doing is project work. And then we need to make sure that we can measure what we're doing. We need to make sure we can make informed decisions. Data is a big focus in our organization right now, creating the right data ecosystem, making sure that everybody understands their role in data. Realizing that data is not just a data team that's working off on the side. Yes, we have, a data and a business intelligence team, but everybody's contributing to that. Those are all important pieces. But to sum it up, the way we do it is we work with the business to understand exactly what their needs are, and then go out and attract the talent that fits those needs. And then we make sure that we have continuous educational opportunities available based on what the business needs. And we develop all of our learning and development programs in concert with business unit leaders.
Okay, so what I heard is that, you know, you're always looking to gather information and understand what skills are needed and where to get those skills. And I think it's very clear, hearing from Tim and knowing the other colleges, they are very open to dialogue, to building relationships so that they can have direct conversations with employers to talk about the skills training, job readiness training, academic training, other types of training that they would like to see added to the curriculum or enhanced with the curriculum. So we want to encourage businesses to have those conversations with their local education and training providers. There's more than a willingness to make those adjustments and to make sure that students are better prepared when they complete programs. Okay, so we're just about wrapping up. Unfortunately, we're just about out of time, but there was one question about connectivity, and just want to mention that WCA recently won a National Science Foundation US Ignite grant, and we've got a pilot program launching in Yonkers. It's called Y-Zone, and it's going to be helping a lot of students connect to the internet. And we think that there's also a lot going on the state level and the federal level with this infrastructure bill. It's going to provide a lot more connectivity for those who are underserved and need to have that service. And then there was also a question about resources for businesses to know about what's available, funding and otherwise. And the two agencies that I look at a lot that have great information and funding and other resources that I think are going to be adding to their menu are Empire State Development and the New York State Department of Labor. So keep in touch with us and we'll get that information out to you. And I also want to just say that in my closing remarks that I am very grateful to our outstanding keynote and panel and other speakers for taking the time to share their incredible knowledge and all the great things that they're doing. And also thank our sponsors who made this event possible. And of course, the audience and all of their great questions. You've heard a great deal about programs and practices and supports and resources that can help any organization. And I would urge everyone to take action, to take advantage of all of these opportunities and resources that are available. Don't wait, jump into it and let us know how we can help. Again, thank you and goodbye. And we hope to see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.